This podcast is brought to you by Emote Projects Limited. The podcast is for educational purposes only. Seek professional advice to get specific help for your project. Enjoy this week's show.
Welcome to An Architect and a DJ Builder podcast. I'm the DJ.
And I'm the architect. And today we are in a therapist office.
We have to be like this.
We're so happy to have Thandiwe with us today. Thandiwe is a licensed therapist and she's a guest on our podcast today. Thank you for being with us, Thandiwe.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Welcome to my space.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for agreeing to be on the show, the podcast, and for welcoming us to your lovely office here.
Yeah.
Now, on this podcast, we mostly talk about building.
Yeah.
So we would like to find out from you as a therapist, what's mental health got to do with building?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, should we really be here?
Yeah. Well, I would say building is a very, very complex process. So it's a great opportunity to just bring out different sides of a person. You know, you don't know who will come out at the end during the process.
Yeah.
And specifically, when challenges arise, that's a great time to kind of like test who you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So mental health is just, your well-being, how you manage situations, your resilience.
Mm.
And we don't usually get opportunities to put that to the test. But when it comes to a building project,
Yeah.
there you go. Every challenge you can think of will probably come up.
It's very true.
yeah.
It's very
So
true.
we'll get to know all the different personalities within us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So have you experienced building before? Have you built before? Is this something that you have personal experience with?
So personally,
Yeah.
I have not had a building project that I'm, taking on,
Yeah.
but I have supported other people in their building process.
Yeah.
And I get to see, the different sides, the indecision, the back and forth.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very interesting, especially to be a support person in the
Yes.
process as well, because
Yes.
you maybe looking from the outside, it seems a bit more straightforward.
Yes.
But when you're in it, you realize it's not that simple.
that simple.
Yeah.
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 Well, like you said, you've never built before, but we can definitely tell you when it comes to building, it can be quite stressful. I mean, you're dealing with you have situations where you're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with different people.
Yeah.
Lots of things don't go as planned, so it's highly stressful.
Yeah.
As a therapist, what would you or how would you advise people on the best way of dealing with stress or coping
Especially
with
in
stress?
this situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Dealing with the stress of a building project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stress is something that builds over time. And so it's really important to be in touch with yourself throughout, especially in terms of how much you're taking on, the different dynamics that you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And especially like if you're a couple, I think it's really great to like bounce off of each other, support each other during the process.
Mm.
So one person might have strengths in one area, one person might have weaknesses in another area. So you might find, when you're operating in an area that's really not a strength for you, it tends to build more stress.
Okay.
And it's really okay to ask for help and ask for support.
Mm.
And that can be really, it can go a long way,
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just taking time away. Sometimes we feel like we need to rush the process. And that can also build stress. Like, I have to get this done by a certain time, So giving yourself just the space to be like, okay, I can rest in between. I don't have to build Rome in a day,
Yeah. Yeah.
That can really help you to just keep the stress levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you said that stress is something that builds over time. And I think the way I viewed it is like, okay, this event happens right now, and then that's where all the stress is coming from. But then it's something that you're saying is probably been
building. Yeah, it's been building, especially if it comes out in a big way.
Yes.
Like you just can't handle that situation. You know, you find yourself maybe lashing out.
Yeah.
You know, then you might find like, okay, I haven't been checking in. It's gotten to 10. I should have checked in when it was at 5.
Yes.
You know.
And maybe 5 was 2 months ago.
Exactly. It was 5 or 2 months ago. And now it's too hard to go back from 10.
Yeah.
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 So.
You said it's okay to ask for help. When it comes to asking for help, what do you mean? Are you getting help from other people who've built before, or do you mean getting professional?
Yeah, actually, both are really good sources. So, especially, you know, in a situation like you're, you know, disagreeing or you're a couple and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the way forward? It's good to consult a professional in that situation because they can give you direction and the decision-making process can be a lot easier. But then again, sometimes you want to know, like, okay, there's some blind spots. Somebody who's been through this, you know, process will probably tell you, hey, look out for this and this and this, you know, and especially if you feel stuck, somebody might have, you know, had a similar situation to you. So it's good to be in a community. You're like, okay, someone else experienced this and this is how they got out of it.
Yeah.
Instead of like going through the stress of just trying to figure it out on your own.
On your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely not something that you want to do for
Exactly. Exactly. And it can be, you know, it can feel a little bit humbling, you know, to ask someone who's been through it, like, hey, so, you know, I'm stuck. You know, what do I do here? But for your well-being, you know, it's really helpful to just reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this part of the building process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of weakness, no.
It's not a sign of weakness. Exactly. You know, it's a strength to be able to be.
Are you asking for
for a friend?
I'm asking for a friend. The guy that I know.
Yeah, you should let him know.
I will tell you.
Yeah.
So, in my like in the work that I do, I'm on the side of helping clients.
Yeah.
On the professional side, and generally here in Zambia, we're not really looked at like, oh, the professional will help me. I think there's a lot of suspicion around, will this person help me? I think even with contractors, you hear a lot of stories of this contractor, I spent all my money, they did something wrong, I had to change, you know, there are lots of like horror stories. I think the process itself, if you are new at it, you can have that, you know, like you fear that, will I do something wrong? There's a lot of that things are going to go wrong. And like for me to do my work well, the client also plays a role, and some of that is the decision making, and some of that is, okay, we have to make it at a certain time and whatnot. So, what would you say to a client who gets paralyzed, or somebody who wants to get into the process and get paralyzed by, will this go wrong? Will that go wrong? The decisions I have to make, and you know, it's a huge thing, and can I do this? And then they're not stepping out because of, you know, because of those situations. What would your take be on that?
So basically, they're trying to start the process.
Yes.
And they're struggling with trust.
Yes.
Especially trusting the contractor that they're speaking to. They just don't know what to do.
Yes.
And so, like, there's issues of safety involved. Like, if there's somebody I can actually, you know, invest in.
Yes, exactly. My life is here.
My life is
This is our home. We're my kids are supposed to be here, or maybe it's an investment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that, you know, it's valid that they're having those concerns.
Yes.
You know, and it's always good to get to a place where you feel sure of the decisions that you're making, so that there's no resentment building.
Yeah.
And, you know, issues of blame. Sometimes when you're not ready and you just jump in, you're like, I knew I should have trusted myself.
Yeah.
So it's always good to trust yourself. And then, of course, informing your decisions can be really helpful. Sometimes you might find, oh, I have the information. This is somebody I can trust. This is the work that they've done, da 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 da. And then you find that I just still feel uncomfortable about the process.
Mm.
So that would be more of a situation of kind of like dealing with the feelings of fear that arise when it comes to like a big change. Because once you start building, that's a really big change.
Yeah.
So just kind of working through like, okay, the anxiety around it,
Yeah.
you know. But if they don't have the information, they don't have the research around the person they're working with,
Yeah.
it's kind of like shooting in the dark. So they don't know like where are we going with this person.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yes, do your research, know who you're working with, and then bring it back to yourself and kind of reflect. Be like, okay, is this about the situation? Or is it just about me and the fears that I'm struggling with? And it's okay to be afraid, but knowing that, okay, the situation is fine. I just need to kind of work around feeling safe with the decisions I made. And that can be really helpful, especially if you're like, working with other people,
Yeah.
Just that reassurance of I'm working with people I can trust because I know
Yeah.
what they can do
Yeah.
can really help, to ease the fear over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So understanding that your feelings are valid.
Yeah.
They're telling you something. Trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Getting yourself in a safe space, researching, doing some background research. If you're not ready, don't go into it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now we deal with a lot of couples when it comes to building. So we have cases of they don't tend to always agree on certain things. So there might be disagreements, and you know how it is with people. One might have a different opinion from the others. So how and that can bring a lot of tension, and in a lot of ways it comes down to communication.
Yeah.
How would you advise people to deal with such things, like so that they're well, I know it's difficult to be on the same page, and like for us, we're always on the same.
Yes. Always.
Not everybody's
We
like
have
that.
Yeah, exactly.
To get people to communicate better, and make sure so that they're as much as possible on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I can give an example. The simplest one would be styles, design styles. So a lot of you see it a lot of the males like very modern, very simple, very but then the wife likes something a bit more, there's a bit more thought.
Color.
Yes, a bit more color, a bit more decoration. So you have a situation where you've got two different ideas, and then now you want to now come to one place.
Because they're building
Yeah.
a house.
Yes, it's one house.
Yeah.
We've got one budget, one plot.
So it has to work.
Yes, it has to
That-
work
Yeah.
for both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that? What can that look like? Yeah.
I think it's always good to start with, an agreed upon plan from the beginning.
Yeah.
Both sides should kind of communicate their must-haves, because you might find somebody like, I really can't compromise on this one thing,
Yeah.
and the other person has their thing. So it's good if they both communicate that so that it's understood within overall picture. Like, how can these two things come together? And of course, within like a healthy, working dynamic like you guys where you communicate, it's easy to kind of tell your partner, this is what I want,
Yeah.
but you might find in some situations it's hard to express that.
Yeah.
So it's always good to just, have that safe space where you say, this is what I would like.
Yeah.
And they also understand and hear you and say, okay, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So when you're coming to a place of compromise, you both feel heard. I find that the biggest challenge is when a partner is not feeling heard or valued. Like every time I'm putting input into this project, it's like it's ignored or it's not that important. So actually taking what your partner is saying seriously, like, okay, what he wants is important and what I want is important.
Yeah.
So can we actually work together to build, even better than what we both initially thought?
Yeah.
You know, I know like sometimes, well, not exactly when it comes to building, but I've seen it before where a partner's trying to surprise, his wife.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't sit well,
Doesn't go well.
Yeah. The intention is right, like every time you surprise you, like, look at this new balcony, and it's like, no, I never said I wanted a balcony, you see? So it's really good to kind of just keep this as something like, there's no need for surprises, even though that's nice.
Yeah.
Just knowing what the other person already wants and would like to see.
Mm.
And then you find yourselves coming to like a place where things can work,
Yeah.
But if there's a power dynamic where maybe one partner is more, bold, their ideas are like the most important, you might find that the process doesn't go well. So maybe for you as the, contractor working with them, you might notice that dynamic happening. Be like, okay, this person is scared to voice what they want.
Yeah.
How about we give them like
The
space?
opportunity.
To do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the professional can help
It
that
definitely can help
be,
that.
be
Come on.
better.
Yeah.
So should I be doing a certificate in counseling or
I
something?
think so. It's bigger on dynamics because
Yeah.
people are pretty complex when it comes to like their wants and their needs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you find that they're compromising, but they're actually not happy that they compromised on that.
Mhm.
Then later, that's when they feel bold enough to say, I actually didn't like the color of the house. So it's like, just be
Yeah.
real. Let's be real from the start. What
Yeah.
do you want?
Yeah. Yeah. So just maybe we hear from you
Mhm.
what other issues apart from what we've talked about already
Mhm.
do you see coming up on a project like a
Mhm.
building project?
Mhm.
Yeah, that perhaps would need attention from a well-being perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe on the aspect of like conflict,
Mm-hmm.
I find that they don't really handle it very well.
Yeah.
And I think most times it's because when conflict does come up, it's not in the space of something as big as a building project.
Mm.
So it might be a little bit easier to work around. But with a project, there's different stressors. You might be seeing a new side of your partner, it could be a newfound respect, but it could also be new weaknesses that you never expected.
Mm.
So, like handling that can be hard. And then, of course, the process is also triggering. It can trigger old experiences, old wounds, that come up.
Yeah.
And so you're fighting with your partner, but maybe you're fighting with one of your parents. They didn't let you have what you wanted growing up.
Yeah.
And then your partner's telling you, I don't want to have this thing in the house. And then it feels like your parents speaking to you saying you can't have it
again.
exactly, so that creates bigger conflict. So I
Yeah.
always find that the project can bring out a lot.
Yeah.
So kind of reassessing like, okay, we're not getting along, what's actually happening here?
Yes.
Are we good to resolve it and talk about it, or do we need to speak to someone?
Yeah.
Is this bigger than just what's happening?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to go too far.
Yeah.
And nothing needs to be held,
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, he always just wants to have his way.
Yeah.
That creates an even bigger conflict because then you feel like you don't have a voice.
Yeah.
So I would say conflict is what brings people into therapy most times.
Yeah.
And then just realizing that it's not even about the thing, it's
Yeah.
an older issue that came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for an individual, because like with couples, you have each other and whatnot, but what could the many things that could go wrong or the many things that could affect your well-being, what could that be for an individual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. For an individual, of course they don't have that extra support.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it would be really difficult for them to kind of like express their challenges in the process.
Yeah.
So you might find that, dealing with people was never something that they were good at.
Yeah.
And so they go through a lot of heartache, people are not, stepping up the way they're supposed to step up.
Yes.
The project is taking longer than it's supposed to take,
Mhm.
and all these things just build. And if it's draining them financially over time, that could cause someone to just come in. So as an individual, I'd say taking on a big project, you still need a support system. Like either somebody you're talking to who's been through it before, or close family or close friends that you can kind of like hash out or vent to when things get really overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? To be honest, I feel like you were speaking to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm glad that I came in. Honestly.
Yeah.
This is your free session.
Free session.
Free session. But we always like to end on a musical note.
Yes.
Because we have found that building goes well with music.
Really? We found that?
Yeah.
We'd like to find out from you, what are you listening to in terms of music at the moment?
So I really like, indie folk music. And recently, I came across an artist. He was, like, I think a refugee from Liberia, moved to the States. And he has a very, natural African folk vibe that I like. So his name is Monrovia. I don't know how I could pronounce that. Monrovia. Yeah. So it's very indie, very ukulele, but it's nice. So one of his songs, I think, is called Big Love.
Big Love.
Yeah. You could.
Big Love by Monrovia.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would definitely.
Very soothing.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
But sounds interesting, especially the ukulele.
Yeah.
Big Love.
Yeah.
All right.
Thandiwe, thank you so much for being our guest. We've learned so much.
So much.
He's got a free session out of this.
In a better human being.
We thank you, and we'll see you soon. An Architect and a DJ Build a Home podcast has been brought to you by Emote Projects Limited. The show is hosted by Kalenga, he's the DJ, and me, Mpangela, I'm the architect. Media by Monkey Business Agency. Music by Bless the Creative.